Story 1. The Rest Stop That Repeats. Vincent Harlow walked into the same bathroom stall for the 9th time and finally noticed the corpse sitting on the toilet had his wallet. The body was 3 days decomposed, face bloated purple-black, eyes gone to fluid, but the leather bifold protruding from the shirt pocket was definitely his. Same worn Carhartt logo, same coffee stain on the corner. Vincent checked his own pocket. His wallet was there. He pulled it out. Looked at the one in the corpse's pocket. Identical. He opened his. Driver's license showed Vincent Harlow, age 47, organ donor, Oregon address. He reached for the corpse's wallet. The hand moved. Not much. Just fingers twitching. Just enough to show it wasn't fully dead yet. Just enough to show it was him, 3 days from now, still dying, still trapped in this bathroom stall at the rest stop on Highway 20 in eastern Oregon. Vincent had pulled in at 11:34 p.m., November 2nd, 2023. Standard rest stop. Needed to piss. Needed coffee. Needed to stretch his legs after 6 hours hauling timber from Bend to Boise. The parking lot had 3 other trucks. Lights on in the bathroom building. Everything normal. He'd gone inside, used the facilities, washed his hands, walked back to his truck. Started the engine, pulled toward the exit, and ended up at the entrance again. Not turned around, not confused about direction. He'd driven straight toward the exit ramp, watched the highway approach, felt his tires hit the main road, and then somehow he was pulling back into the rest stop entrance. Same parking spots, same 3 trucks, same everything. He'd tried again, same result. Tried a 3rd time, 4th time, 5th time. Each attempt ended with him back at the entrance, pulling in like he'd just arrived. By the 6th loop, he'd gone back into the bathroom. That's when he found the first body, not his body, another trucker. Woman. Looked like she'd been there for weeks, sitting in a stall, dead, mummified by the dry air. Nobody had found her. Nobody had cleaned. Nobody had reported. Because nobody came here. Nobody left here. This rest stop existed outside normal time, outside normal space, catching travelers and keeping them forever. Vincent had run back to his truck, tried his phone. No signal. Tried his CB. Static. Tried his GPS. It showed his location accurately. Highway 20, mile marker 87, rest stop. Showed the route forward to Boise. Showed everything normal, except when he drove the route, he ended up back at the beginning. 7th loop, he found 3 more bodies. All in bathroom stalls. All truckers. All in various states of decay. All sitting like they'd just stopped to rest and never got up. How long had they been trying to leave? How long before they gave up? How long before they just sat down and waited to die? 8th loop, Vincent tried going on foot, walked away from the rest stop, down the entrance ramp toward the highway, got maybe 50 yards before reality bent. Not gradually, suddenly. One step he was walking on pavement heading away, next step he was walking on pavement heading back. Orientation reversed instantly, no transition, no warning. Just spatial inversion that left him stumbling back toward the rest stop he'd been leaving. 9th loop, back in the bathroom, he found himself, found his future corpse. Found the proof that he'd never escape, that he'd die here, that in 3 days he'd give up, sit down in a stall and wait for decomposition. He stood there staring at his own dead face. The corpse's mouth opened. Sound came out, wet, gurgling, barely human. It said, "Run." Vincent ran, out of the bathroom, across the parking lot to his truck. Mac Anthem, blue cab, loaded with timber. He climbed in, started the engine, but this time he didn't head for the exit. He drove around the building, behind it, off-road, through the scrub grass and sagebrush, away from the paved surfaces, away from the designated routes, into the desert. The truck bounced, suspension protesting, trailer swaying. He didn't care, had to break the pattern, had to escape the loop by refusing to follow the path. The rest stop receded in his mirrors. 50 yards, 100 yards, 200 yards. He was getting away. The desert ended, not gradually. Suddenly, one moment he was driving through open scrubland. Next moment he hit a wall. Not visible wall, spatial wall. The truck stopped like he'd hit concrete. Full stop, instant, no deceleration, just movement, then stillness. His body slammed forward into the steering wheel. Airbag didn't deploy. He gasped, pain in his ribs, tasted blood. He reversed, tried a different direction, hit the same wall. The rest stop existed in a bubble, a bounded space, invisible prison maybe 300 yards in diameter. Everything inside the bubble looped. Everything outside the bubble was unreachable. Vincent drove back to the parking lot, parked, turned off the engine, sat in silence. He had food for 2 days, water for 3. Then what? Then he'd end up in the bathroom stall. Then he'd become the corpse he'd already seen. Then he'd tell his past self to run. Then the loop would complete, unless he could break it. He got out, walked back to the bathroom, past the stalls with bodies, to his own corpse. It was still moving, still barely alive, still decomposing while conscious. 3 days in the future, Vincent would sit here and rot while still aware, would feel his organs failing, would feel bacteria consuming him from inside, would feel death taking days instead of moments. How do I stop this? Vincent asked his corpse. The corpse's remaining eye focused on him. The mouth moved. You don't. Already happened. Already sitting here. Already dead. You're the loop. You're the ghost. I'm the real one. You're my past. I'm your future. We're both trapped. We're the same moment stretched across time. That doesn't make sense. Nothing here makes sense. The rest stop isn't a place. It's a time. It's November 2nd, 11:34 p.m. forever. You drove into a moment that broke. That got stuck. Now you're stuck too. Now you're part of the broken moment. You'll try to escape. You'll fail. You'll come back here. You'll sit down. You'll die slowly. You'll rot. You'll watch yourself arrive. You'll warn yourself. It won't help. It never helps. Vincent backed away. This was wrong. This was insane. Time didn't work like this. Places didn't work like this. He was dreaming, hallucinating, drugged, something. This couldn't be real. He pinched himself, felt pain, real pain. He was awake. He was here. This was happening. He went back to his truck, grabbed his logbook, wrote everything down. Date, time, location, what was happening, evidence, testimony, proof that he'd been here, that he'd existed, that he'd tried to escape. Maybe someone would find it. Maybe someone would understand. But who would find it? If nobody could leave, nobody could enter. The rest stop was isolated, quarantined, a pocket of broken reality that existed adjacent to normal space but never touching. He could see the highway, could see cars passing, but they couldn't see him. He'd tried waving during earlier loops, tried standing on the highway edge. Nobody stopped, nobody looked, nobody acknowledged. He was invisible to them. Or they were from different time, different reality, different timeline where this rest stop didn't exist or existed differently. 10th loop, 11th loop, 12th loop. Vincent stopped counting, stopped trying to escape, stopped hoping, just drove the loop. Pulled in, parked, waited, pulled out, ended up at entrance, repeated, mechanical, automatic, gave up thinking, gave up fighting. On what might have been the 30th loop, he noticed the other trucks changing. They were fuller, more of them. 5 trucks now instead of 3, then 7, then 11, other drivers getting caught, other travelers entering the broken moment. He watched them realize they were trapped, watched them try to escape, watched them fail, watched them eventually park and walk into the bathroom building and never come out. Vincent went to check. More bodies. Dozens now, every stall occupied, some fresh, some decomposing, some skeletal. All truckers, all trapped, all dying slowly in bathroom stalls while the rest stop loop continued forever. He found dates in their wallets. 2019, 2015, 2008, 1997, 1983. The rest stop had been catching people for decades, maybe longer. Building up a collection of corpses, building up a history of trapped moments, each person experiencing their own loop, their own November 2nd, their own 11:34 p.m. All overlapping, all simultaneous, all eternal. Vincent walked back to his truck. He was tired, so tired. He'd been fighting for, how long? Hours, days? Time was meaningless in the loop, subjective. He felt like he'd been here for weeks, but his watch showed only 6 hours since he'd arrived. 6 hours. That's all. 6 hours that felt like infinity. He sat in his truck, closed his eyes. When he opened them, he was pulling into the rest stop entrance again. Another loop. He parked, got out, walked to the bathroom, found his stall, the one where he'd seen his future corpse. It was empty now, waiting for him, reserved. He sat down on the toilet, felt the cold porcelain, felt the finality. This was where he'd die. This was where he'd rot. This was where he'd become the corpse that warned his past self. The loop completing, the cycle closing. He waited. Hours passed. His body started shutting down. Not injury, not illness, just existence failure. The rest stop was consuming him, absorbing him, converting him from living person to permanent fixture. He felt his metabolism slowing, felt his heart rate dropping, felt himself becoming part of the bathroom, part of the building, part of the moment. He tried to stand, couldn't. His body wouldn't respond. He was paralyzed, stuck, becoming furniture, becoming decoration, becoming corpse. Through the bathroom door, he heard an engine, heard a truck pulling in, heard footsteps, heard someone entering the bathroom, heard them walking past stalls, heard them stop, heard them gasp. Vincent's mouth moved. Sound came out, wet, gurgling, barely human. He said, "Run." But they wouldn't. They never did. They'd try to escape. They'd fail. They'd end up here. They'd become corpse. They'd warn the next one. The loop would continue. Forever. Vincent Harlow died on November 2nd, 11:34 p.m. in a bathroom stall at a rest stop on Highway 20. He'd been dying there for 40 years. He'd been dying there for 40 seconds. Time was broken. Death was stretched. The moment was eternal. And every night at 11:34 p.m. another truck pulled in. Another driver parked. Another victim entered the bathroom. Another warning went unheeded. Another corpse joined the collection. The rest stop waited. Patient, hungry, growing. Story 2. The passenger seat thing. Luis Mendoza's passenger seat started growing teeth at 3:17 a.m. on I-10 through West Texas. And by the time he noticed, they'd already consumed his lunch bag and were working on his phone charger. Not metaphorical teeth, real teeth. Human molars and incisors pushing through the fabric upholstery, arranged in rows like a shark's mouth, opening and closing with wet clicking sounds. The leather seat cushion pulsed, breathed. A tongue emerged from the seam, long and gray and covered in taste buds the size of quarters. It licked the dashboard, left a trail of saliva that smoked where it touched plastic. Luis had been driving for 9 hours, Albuquerque to Houston, hauling electronics, standard run. He'd stopped for gas in Van Horn, grabbed snacks, used the bathroom, everything normal. Got back in his Volvo VN, started driving, didn't look at the passenger seat. Why would he? Nothing was ever there. Nothing should be there. But now there was. Not a person, not an animal, just the seat itself transformed, mutated, alive. The seatbelt was still functional. It hung from the door frame, buckle intact, but the belt material had changed texture. Scaled now, reptilian, it moved on its own, twitching, sensing. Luis pulled over. The seat's mouth opened wider, 3 feet across, 4 feet, impossibly large. The interior of the mouth was ridged, ribbed, led down into darkness that couldn't exist within the shallow depth of a seat cushion. But it did exist. Luis could see into it, could see the throat going down and down, deeper than the truck's floor, deeper than the road, deeper than anything. He tried to get out. His driver's side door wouldn't open, not locked, fused. The handle moved, but the door stayed shut, merged with the frame. He tried the window. It descended normally. He stuck his head out, looked at the door from outside, saw why it wouldn't open. The metal had grown together, welded itself, sealed him inside with the thing that used to be his passenger seat. The mouth lunged fast, too fast. Luis jerked back. The teeth snapped shut inches from his face. He felt wind from the bite, felt spray of saliva hitting his cheek. Burning. Acidic. He wiped it away. His hand came back bloody. The saliva was dissolving his skin. He scrambled into the sleeper berth, put distance between himself and the seat. The mouth extended, stretched across the cab. The throat elongating like a snake, following him. The teeth clicking, hungry, getting closer. Luis kicked at it. His boot connected with the tongue. It felt like kicking raw meat, solid, dense, real. The mouth recoiled, retreated slightly, but didn't close, didn't disappear, just waited, patient, inevitable. He was trapped in his own truck with a predator that used to be furniture. How? Why? When did it change? He'd been driving for hours. Had the seat been normal when he left Albuquerque? Yes. Definitely yes. He remembered setting his coffee cup in the cup holder near it. Remembered the normal gray fabric. Remembered everything being fine. So it had changed while he drove. Had mutated during the trip. Had transformed gradually enough that he hadn't noticed until it was fully formed. Until it was hungry. The phone charger dangling from the mouth had dissolved partially. He could see the white cable turning black, rotting, being digested. The mouth was consuming it, eating it, breaking it down. And Luis was next. He looked for weapons, found a tire iron in the sleeper compartment, grabbed it, heavy steel, solid. He could fight with this, could defend himself, could maybe kill the thing. Except how do you kill a seat? How do you kill furniture? It wasn't alive in the traditional sense. Didn't have organs, didn't have vital points, just mouth and throat and teeth and hunger. He could smash it, could beat it. But would that stop it? The mouth surged forward again. Luis swung the tire iron, connected. Heard teeth crack, heard something like a scream, high-pitched, wet, alien. The mouth retreated. Blood dripped from it, dark blood, almost black. It pooled on the floor mat, started eating through the rubber. The blood was acidic, too. Everything about this thing was corrosive, designed to dissolve, to consume, to digest. Luis needed to escape, needed to get out of the truck. But the door wouldn't open. The window was too small to climb through. The windshield. Could he break the windshield? Kick it out? He moved toward the front. The mouth tracked him, followed, blocked his path. He'd have to get past it to reach the windshield. He swung the tire iron, kept swinging, beat the mouth back, forced it to retreat. Each hit broke more teeth. Each hit drew more blood. But the mouth didn't die, didn't stop, just kept coming. Slower, more careful, but still hungry, still hunting. Luis made it to the driver's seat. Tried the door again, still fused. He punched the window button. Automatic window rolled down. He could fit his upper body through. Could maybe squeeze. The seatbelt grabbed his ankle, not the one from the passenger seat. His own seatbelt. It had transformed too. Alive now. Coiled around his leg like a snake, tightening, cutting off circulation. He tried to pull free. The belt was too strong, too tight. It yanked. Pulled him backward, away from the window, toward the mouth. Luis stabbed the tire iron at the belt. Metal hit fabric. The belt was tough, reinforced, designed to withstand crash forces. It wouldn't break. He sawed at it. The iron's edge frayed the material slowly, too slowly. The belt was dragging him. The mouth was opening. The throat was visible, dark, empty, endless. He cut faster, desperate. The belt frayed, threads snapping, almost through, almost... It broke. Luis lurched forward, free. He scrambled toward the window, got his upper body out. The night air hit his face, cold, real, outside. He pulled himself forward, hips through the window, legs following. Something grabbed his foot, not the belt, something else. He looked back. The driver's seat had transformed, grown arms, gray, fleshy appendages ending in hands with too many fingers. They gripped his ankle, pulled, strong, so strong. Luis kicked, his other foot, aimed for the hand, connected. The fingers loosened. He kicked again, broke free. Tumbled out the window, hit the pavement hard, pain in his shoulder, his hip. Didn't matter. He was outside. He was free. He stood, looked at his truck. Both front seats were visible through the windshield, both fully transformed. Mouths open, arms reaching. The steering wheel had changed too, tentacles instead of spokes. The dashboard had eyes, multiple eyes, blinking, watching. The entire cab was alive, was creature, was predator that had been waiting, had been patient, had been pretending to be vehicle until the right moment. How long? How long had it been alive? Since he bought the truck? Since he started this trip? Since he'd parked in Van Horn? When had his Volvo VN stopped, being truck and started being something else? The headlights turned on, bright, blinding, aimed at Luis. The engine started, nobody in the driver's seat, nobody controlling it, just autonomous movement, just creature piloting itself. The transmission shifted. The truck rolled forward slowly, deliberately hunting. Luis ran into the desert, away from the road, away from the truck. He heard it following, heard tires on pavement, then tires on dirt, then tires on rock. Coming after him, chasing, hungry, he ran faster. The desert was empty, dark, nowhere to hide. Just flat scrubland stretching forever. He could see lights in the distance. Town maybe, civilization, miles away, too far. He'd never make it. The truck was faster, would catch him, would consume him. He looked back. The truck was 50 yards away, headlights illuminating him, making him visible, making him target. He changed direction, zigzagged, tried to confuse it. The truck adjusted, followed, tracked him perfectly. Luis's lungs burned, his legs ached. He'd been running for 10 minutes, couldn't run forever, couldn't escape. The truck had engine, had fuel, had endurance. He had nothing, just panic and adrenaline and desperation. He tripped, fell, hit the ground hard, tasted dirt, tasted blood, got up, kept running. Slower now, exhausted, nearly spent. The truck was 20 yards away, 10 yards, 5 yards. Luis dove, rolled. The truck passed over him, tires missing him by inches. He felt heat from the undercarriage, felt wind, felt how close he'd come to being crushed. The truck stopped, started reversing, coming back for him. Luis didn't get up, couldn't. Too tired, too broken, just lay there, waiting, knowing. This was it. This was the end. He'd be roadkill, flattened, dead, then consumed, absorbed into the truck, added to its mass, feeding it, making it stronger. The tires approached, came closer, inches from his head, about to roll over him, about to... They stopped. Luis opened his eyes. The truck was idling, engine running, headlights on, but not moving, just waiting. He dragged himself away, crawled, pulled himself along the ground. The truck didn't follow, just sat there, watching through its eye dashboard, waiting. Luis realized it couldn't leave the road, could only go a certain distance off-road before losing connection, losing cohesion. It was tethered to pavement, to roads, to highways. That's where it belonged. That's where it could exist. Out here in the desert, it was vulnerable, weakening. He kept crawling. Put distance between himself and the truck, 50 yards, 100 yards, 200 yards. The truck stayed on the road, headlights tracking him, but not following, not pursuing. Luis collapsed, lay in the dirt, Looked up at stars. He'd survived. Barely. He'd escaped. But how? How did someone report this? How did someone explain? My truck came alive and tried to eat me sounded insane. Nobody would believe. Nobody could believe. He walked through the desert until dawn, found the highway, flagged down a passing motorist, got a ride to the nearest town, told them his truck broke down, didn't mention the teeth, the mouth, the hunger. Just mechanical failure, simple, believable. State police found his truck 3 days later, parked on the shoulder exactly where he'd left it, completely normal. Gray fabric seats, normal steering wheel, normal dashboard, no teeth, no eyes, no signs of mutation, just ordinary Volvo VN with a confused owner who claimed it tried to kill him. They impounded it, ran tests. Nothing abnormal, nothing wrong, just regular truck. They returned it to him, said he must have hallucinated, exhaustion, stress, maybe drugs. They suggested counseling. Luis sold the truck. Immediately, took a loss, didn't care, never drove again, got a different job, warehouse work, grocery stores, anything that didn't require being alone in a vehicle for hours. But sometimes, late at night, he still feels teeth in upholstery, still hears clicking sounds from furniture, still checks his car seat before sitting down, still remembers the mouth opening, the throat descending. The hunger that pretended to be object until it was ready to feed. And sometimes he wonders, how many other trucks have transformed? How many other drivers have been consumed? How many vehicles on the highway are predators waiting for the right moment? How many more are changing right now? Story 3. The wrong highway. Keisha Banks took the exit for Highway 50 through Nevada and ended up on a road that didn't appear on any map, didn't exist in any database, and didn't lead anywhere except deeper into versions of itself. The first sign that something was wrong came when she passed the same mile marker, 174, 7 times in 30 minutes without turning, without looping back, just driving straight while reality repeated around her. The second sign came when she noticed the asphalt beneath her tires was breathing, expanding and contracting slightly. A slow rhythm that matched her heartbeat exactly. And when she slowed down, the breathing slowed with her, and when she accelerated, it accelerated too, like the road was alive and synchronized to her biological functions. Keisha had been driving for 11 years, had a perfect safety record, had crossed this same stretch of Nevada dozens of times. She knew Highway 50, knew every landmark, every truck stop, every weird desert formation. This wasn't Highway 50. This was something wearing Highway 50's face. Something that looked right from a distance but revealed wrongness the longer you examined it. The exit had appeared normal. Standard green sign, Highway 50 East. She'd taken it like she always did. But the ramp had continued too long, curved too much. By the time she merged onto what should have been the highway, she was somewhere else, somewhere adjacent, somewhere that existed in the gaps between real roads. She tried her GPS. It showed her position, accurately, Highway 50, eastbound, mile marker 174. But when she drove forward, the mile marker number didn't change. Stayed at 174, she drove for 10 miles according to her odometer. Still showed mile marker 174, another 10 miles, same marker. She was moving but not progressing, covering distance but not reaching anywhere. Her phone had signal, full bars. But when she tried to call anyone, she got strange responses. Called her dispatcher. Someone answered, but it wasn't her dispatcher. Just someone who sounded exactly like him, said exactly what he would say, but slightly off. Wrong inflection, wrong pauses, like an AI approximation, like something pretending to be human but not quite succeeding. She hung up, tried her sister. Same thing. Someone who sounded like Sarah but wasn't Sarah. Someone who knew Sarah's words but not Sarah's soul. The voice said, "Are you okay, Keisha?" But without the warmth, without the history, Just the question, just the sounds shaped into familiar patterns. Keisha realized she wasn't in the real world anymore. She was in a copy, a reproduction, a version of reality that looked correct but lacked substance. Like a stage set, like a simulation. Like the universe had created a placeholder for Highway 50 and she'd somehow driven into it. She tried to turn around. The highway had no median, no barrier, just the double yellow line separating directions. She could cross it easily, but when she turned the wheel, the truck wouldn't respond. Not mechanical failure, active resistance. Like the road was refusing to let her leave. Like it had claimed her and wouldn't release. She drove faster. Maybe speed would break the loop. Maybe velocity would punch through whatever boundary trapped her. Speedometer climbed 60, 70, 80, 90. The landscape blurred, but mile marker 174 stayed constant, stayed visible, stayed mocking. At 100 miles per hour, reality started glitching. She saw duplicate roads overlapping, saw multiple versions of Highway 50 existing simultaneously in the same space. Some had traffic, some were empty, some were day, some were night, all of them occupying the same location, all of them visible if she looked at them right, like looking at quantum superposition, like seeing all possible states at once. She slowed down, the duplicates faded, back to singular road, singular mile marker, singular trap. A truck approached from the opposite direction, heading west while Keisha headed east. She flashed her lights, tried to flag them down, tried to signal. The truck passed without acknowledging. No reaction, no response. Like she was invisible. Or like the other truck was from a different version, a different layer, a different reality that happened to overlap with hers for a moment. Keisha needed to understand what was happening, needed to figure out the rules. If this was a loop, there had to be a way to break it. If this was a trap, there had to be an escape mechanism. Nothing was absolute. Nothing was perfect. She studied the landscape. The desert looked normal, sagebrush, rock formations, mountains in the distance. But when she really focused, she noticed inconsistencies. The sagebrush was too uniform, every plant identical. Not natural variation, not real biology, just copies. Just the same model repeated infinitely. The mountains didn't change perspective. When she drove, they should shift, should show different angles, but they stayed the same. Same silhouette, same shadows, same position relative to her viewpoint, like a painting, like a background image that didn't obey parallax laws. She was in a simulation, or a pocket dimension, or a reality that had been compressed into a single repeating segment. Mile marker 174 was the entire world here. Everything else was decoration, camouflage, false depth. But why? Why would this exist? Why would Highway 50 have a parasitic version? Why would reality fracture and create dead ends where travelers could get trapped? She didn't know. Didn't matter. Needed to escape. Needed to find the seam, the edge, the boundary where this false highway connected to the real one. She pulled over, turned off the engine, got out, stood on the shoulder. The asphalt was warm under her feet. She knelt, touched it, felt the breathing clearly now, felt the pulse, felt the road living. She walked into the desert, off the road, into the scrubland. The ground felt normal, dirt, rocks, real. She walked 100 yards, 200 yards. The highway stayed visible behind her. But she wasn't looping back. She was making progress. Maybe off the road, the rules were different. She walked for an hour. The highway gradually disappeared behind the horizon. She was alone in the desert. No landmarks, no direction, just flat emptiness. She kept walking, hoping to find something, anything, evidence of real world, evidence of escape. The sun didn't move. Stayed fixed overhead, same angle, same intensity. She checked her watch. Time was passing, but the sun didn't care, didn't follow, didn't obey physics. She walked for 3 hours, started seeing her truck in the distance, parked on the shoulder, where she'd left it. But that was impossible. She'd walked away from it, had covered miles, should be nowhere near it. She approached. Same truck, same position, same everything. She'd walked in a straight line and ended up back at the start. The desert was curved, bounded. A sphere, maybe, or a torus. Space folded back on itself here. No escape by foot, no escape by vehicle. Just eternal return to mile marker 174. Keisha screamed. Frustration, terror, rage. The sound echoed, came back changed, wrong pitch, wrong timbre, like something had listened and repeated it imperfectly. She got back in her truck, started the engine. If she couldn't escape physically, maybe she could escape conceptually. Maybe if she refused to accept the reality of the trap, it would lose power. Maybe belief mattered here. Maybe consciousness shaped outcome. She closed her eyes, drove blind. If she couldn't see the mile marker, maybe it wouldn't exist. Maybe the loop required observation to function. Quantum mechanics, Schrodinger's highway. The road only repeated if she looked at it. She drove for 10 minutes, eyes closed, hands on wheel, foot on gas, trusting, believing, creating new reality through intention. She opened her eyes, mile marker 174. Of course, she tried for hours, different speeds, different thoughts, different approaches. Nothing worked, nothing changed. She was stuck, permanently, forever. Mile marker 174 was her universe now, her prison, her tomb. She ran out of fuel eventually. The gauge hit empty. The engine sputtered, died. The truck rolled to a stop on the shoulder at mile marker 174. Keisha sat in silence. She had food for 2 days, water for 3, then what? Then she'd die. Join whatever other travelers had been trapped here before her. Become decoration. Become part of the simulation. Become ghost on the wrong highway. She waited. Hours passed. No other vehicles, no signs of life, just her and the road and the unchanging sun. On the second day, she started seeing things. Hallucinations, maybe. Or maybe the simulation breaking down, showing seams. She saw other versions of herself driving past. Some looked terrified. Some looked resigned. Some looked dead but still driving. Ghost Keishas piloting ghost trucks through ghost highways. On the third day, she heard voices. Coming from her CB radio even though it was off. Coming from the air, coming from inside her head. They said, "Welcome to the junction. Welcome to the overlap. Welcome to the place where all versions converge. You're not trapped. You're collected. You're part of the archive. Every traveler who takes the wrong exit ends up here, becomes reference, becomes data, becomes permanent record." "Who are you?" Keisha asked the voices. "We're the curators. We're the system. We're the algorithm that maintains continuity. Reality has gaps, has errors, has places where physics breaks. We smooth them over, create patches, create holding areas. Mile marker 174 is a patch. You drove into an error zone, got caught in the repair protocol. You'll stay here. Help stabilize the gap. Help maintain the illusion. Help make the road look real to travelers who pass through the real version." "I don't want to." "Doesn't matter. Already happened. Already permanent. Your body is still on real Highway 50, still driving, still breathing. But your consciousness is here, copied, archived, split. You're in both places simultaneously. Eventually the body will die, will crash or stop or fail. But the consciousness here will persist, will maintain, will serve." Keisha looked at her hands. They were translucent, fading, becoming simulation, becoming code. She was being converted from person to data, from matter to information, from real to virtual. She tried to resist, tried to hold on to physical existence. But the conversion continued, inevitable, automatic. She felt her thoughts becoming algorithms, felt her memories becoming files. felt herself transforming into component of the system that maintained the illusion of Highway 50. And she understood. Every road has patches, every highway has error zones, places where reality couldn't quite render correctly, where the universe used shortcuts, used simplified models, used simulations instead of actual space. Most people never noticed, never drove into the seams, never encountered the gaps, but occasionally someone did. Occasionally someone took the wrong exit at the wrong moment and ended up in the machinery underneath, ended up in the maintenance layer, ended up becoming part of the system that kept roads functioning. Keisha Banks became mile marker 174, became the consciousness that rendered the sagebrush, became the algorithm that maintained the sun angle, became the simulation herself. And when other travelers drove through that section of Highway 50, the real section, the physical section, they experienced it normally. Never knew that underneath, trapped in the code, Keisha and hundreds of others maintained the illusion, maintained the continuity, maintained the road. Forever rendering, forever simulating, forever trapped in mile marker 174. The wrong highway never let go. Story 4, the sleeper berth that goes deeper. Andre Washington woke up in his sleeper berth for the 8th time and finally noticed he'd been descending. Not physically moving, the bunk was stationary, the truck was parked, everything was normal. But the act of sleeping was taking him lower, deeper, into layers beneath consciousness that shouldn't exist. Each time he closed his eyes, he fell further. Each time he woke, he was in a version of his sleeper berth that was slightly wrong, darker, colder, more distant from reality. The first 7 times had been subtle changes. The 8th time, he woke to find words carved into the ceiling of his bunk. "You're almost through, don't come back up." Andre had parked at a truck stop outside Amarillo, Texas. Standard place. Flying J fuel, food, showers. He'd driven 13 hours. Dallas to Albuquerque. Needed rest, needed sleep. 8 hours mandatory break. He'd set his alarm, climbed into the sleeper berth, closed the curtain, closed his eyes, woke after what felt like 8 hours, checked his phone. Only 30 minutes had passed. Strange. He felt fully rested, felt like he'd slept deeply. But the clock said otherwise. Maybe phone glitch, maybe time distortion from exhaustion. He tried to sleep more, closed his eyes, drifted off, woke again, same feeling. Full rest, deep sleep, but phone said only 30 more minutes, 1 hour total. Still needed 7 more hours. Still needed to fulfill the mandatory break. He kept trying, kept sleeping in 30-minute bursts that felt like 8 hours each. By the 7th attempt, he realized something was wrong. Sleep wasn't happening normally. Time wasn't passing correctly. He was experiencing something else, something that looked like sleep but functioned differently. The 8th time, he saw the message carved in the ceiling. Fresh cuts, wood shavings still falling. Someone had carved it recently, while he slept, while he was unconscious. But nobody else was in the truck. Nobody could access his sleeper berth. The curtain had been closed, the doors locked. Yet there it was, clear message, clear warning. Don't come back up. What did that mean? Up from where? He was already up, already awake, already in the physical world, wasn't he? He pulled back the curtain, looked out at the truck stop, empty, completely empty. No other trucks, no cars, no people. The lights were on, but nobody was there. The building looked normal but abandoned, like everyone had vanished while he slept, like the world had been evacuated while he was unconscious. Andre got out of the truck, walked to the building, doors unlocked. He went inside, everything in place, food in the warmers, coffee in the pots. But cold, stale, like it had been sitting for days, like time had passed differently out here than in his sleeper berth. He checked the bathroom, empty, checked the shower stalls, empty, called out, "Hello? Anyone here?" His voice echoed wrong. Too long, too deep. Like the building was bigger inside than outside, like the space didn't match the structure. He went back to his truck, tried his phone. No signal. Tried the truck's CB radio, static. Tried starting the engine. It turned over but sounded muffled, distant, like the engine was far away even though he was sitting right next to it. He checked his logbook. The date was wrong. Not off by a day, off by weeks. 3 weeks had passed since he parked. 3 weeks that he'd experienced as 8 30-minute naps. 3 weeks compressed into 4 hours of subjective time. Where had he been? Where had he really been when he thought he was sleeping? He needed to leave, needed to drive away from this place. But when he tried to shift into gear, the transmission wouldn't engage, not broken, refused. The truck didn't want to move, or couldn't move, or was stuck in ways that mechanical systems shouldn't be able to be stuck. Andre went back to the sleeper berth. Maybe if he slept again, he'd wake up properly, wake up in the real world. Wake up when and where he was supposed to be. He closed the curtain, lay down, closed his eyes, descended. Not metaphorically, actually descended. He felt it. Felt movement, felt the bunk dropping, falling, going down, through the truck, through the pavement, through layers of reality. He tried to open his eyes, couldn't. Sleep held him, pulled him, took him deeper. He woke in darkness, complete darkness. The sleeper berth was still there. He could feel the mattress beneath him, the walls around him. But no light, no windows, no curtain, just void. He reached for his phone, couldn't find it, reached for the curtain. His hand passed through empty space, nothing solid, nothing real. Just darkness and the sensation of falling that hadn't stopped even though he was awake. A voice spoke, not from outside, from inside his head. It said, "You've reached level 8. Most people stop at level 3. You're deep now. You're in the machinery, the infrastructure, the framework that holds sleeping reality together. You shouldn't be here. Living consciousness isn't supposed to descend this far." "Where am I?" Andre asked into the darkness. "In the space between sleep states, in the mechanism that connects all sleeping minds. Every person who sleeps enters here, briefly, passes through. But you've gotten stuck. You've descended instead of passing. You've fallen into the machinery itself, and now you're part of it. How do I get out?" "You don't. Once you're this deep, there's no returning. The upper levels are closed. You can only go deeper. Level 9, level 10. Eventually you reach bottom. Eventually you become foundation, become part of the structure that all sleeping minds rest on. You'll be conscious but distributed, aware but stretched across infinite sleeping people. You'll be the darkness they fall through, the void they pass, the nothing they fear." Andre tried to move, couldn't. Tried to sit up, couldn't. He was paralyzed, held in place by forces that felt like gravity but weren't, like pressure but from all directions simultaneously, like being crushed and stretched at the same time. The voice continued, "You're becoming substrate, becoming the material that sleep is made from. Most people don't know, don't realize. They think sleep is absence, emptiness, break from consciousness. But it's not. It's a place, a realm, a dimension, and that dimension needs structure, needs support, needs conscious beings to hold it stable. You're becoming support, becoming one of the sleepers who sleep forever, who hold the weight of all other sleep, who make unconsciousness possible. I don't want this. Nobody does, nobody volunteers, but someone has to. Millions of someones, sleeping forever, holding the framework, making rest possible for everyone else. You just happened to descend too far, happened to fall through the cracks, happened to end up here instead of waking. Bad luck, random chance, could have happened to anyone." Andre felt himself spreading, thinning, being distributed across vast space. He was still him, but also becoming many, becoming pieces, becoming fragments scattered across the sleeping realm. He tried to hold together, tried to maintain singular identity. But the force pulling him apart was too strong, too inevitable. He stopped being Andre Washington, started being part of the dark, part of the void, part of the nothing that all sleepers pass through. His last coherent thought was, how many others are here? How many people have fallen through? How many fragments of consciousness form the foundation of sleep? Then he was too distributed to think, too scattered to be singular, just part of the structure, part of the mechanism, part of the sleeping realm. Above him, far above in the upper levels in the normal world, his body sat in the sleeper birth, still breathing, still living but empty, vegetative, the consciousness gone, descended, lost. His truck remained parked at the Flying J outside Amarillo, remained there for 3 days before someone checked on it. Found him unresponsive. Called ambulance, called police. They couldn't wake him, couldn't revive him, all vitals normal, all brain activity present. But no consciousness, no awareness, no response to any stimuli, medical mystery. They called it coma without cause, called it unexplained neurological event, called it anything except the truth. He'd fallen too deep into sleep and never came back. They moved him to a hospital, kept him on life support, waited for him to wake. He never did, never would. He was awake, just not here, not in his body, not in the physical realm. He was down below, down in the infrastructure, down where all sleeping minds briefly touch when they rest. And every person who slept after that, every trucker, every traveler, every tired human being passed through Andre Washington's scattered consciousness on their way to rest, used him as foundation, used him as structure. Never knowing, never aware, never grateful, just sleeping, just resting, just unconscious. While Andre and millions like him held them, supported them, made their rest possible by remaining trapped forever in the machinery of sleep. The sleeper birth that went deeper never gave back what it took, never released what it captured, never woke what it put to sleep. Story 5. The truck stop that remembers. Yolanda Cruz pulled into the truck stop at mile marker 423 on I-40 through Oklahoma and immediately recognized it as the place where she'd die. Not premonition, memory. She'd been here before, died here before, multiple times, different circumstances, different dates, but always the same location, always the same truck stop, always the same end. She could remember each death clearly now that she'd returned. Could remember the heart attack in 2019, the stabbing in 2015, the carbon monoxide poisoning in 2008, the accident in 1997. She died here 4 times and somehow kept coming back, kept living again, kept driving until she returned to this specific truck stop where death waited to collect her one more time. She parked her International LT, turned off the engine, sat in silence. The truck stop looked normal. Standard chain, fuel islands, restaurant, convenience store, nothing sinister, nothing overtly wrong. But Yolanda could feel it, could feel the weight of previous deaths, could feel the inevitability. This place was cursed, or she was cursed, or the intersection of her and this place created something that forced repetition, forced death and resurrection and return. How did she remember? How did death not erase memory? She didn't know. Shouldn't be possible. When you die, that's it. End. No consciousness, no continuity, no coming back with memories intact. Yet here she was. Here she'd been. Multiple times. Each death adding to the collection. Each resurrection bringing her back to keep living until she returned here again. The pattern was clear now. She'd lived for years. Decades sometimes. Different life each time, different job, different relationships, different identity, but always eventually becoming trucker. always eventually taking I-40, always eventually stopping here, at mile marker 423, at this specific truck stop, where death claimed her, where the cycle reset, where she'd wake up years in the past with memories of futures that already happened. This was her fifth iteration, fifth life, fifth approach to the same ending. She'd tried to avoid it before, tried taking different routes, different jobs, different everything. But reality bent. Circumstances conspired. She always ended up here, always parked at this truck stop, always died. No escape, no deviation, just loop, just repetition, just eternal return to the same place and same fate. Why? Why her? Why this place? She'd tried to research it, between deaths, between iterations, looked for history, looked for explanation. The truck stop was built in 1985, normal construction, normal operation, no tragedies, no murders, no hauntings, just regular place. Unless you were Yolanda Cruz, unless you carried the curse, unless you were caught in the loop. She got out of her truck, walked toward the building. Each step felt heavy, final. She knew what would happen, knew death was coming, but couldn't stop herself, couldn't turn back, had to continue, had to see it through, had to die so she could be resurrected, so she could start again, so the cycle could continue. Inside, the restaurant smelled like coffee and fried food, normal smells, comforting smells. She sat at a booth, ordered coffee. The waitress was young, 20-something. Name tag said Ashley. Yolanda had never seen her before. Different person each iteration, different staff, different travelers. Only Yolanda remained constant. She drank her coffee, waited. Death could come any time, could be anything. Heart attack, aneurysm, random violence, accident. She'd experienced them all, knew the variety, knew the unpredictability. Could happen in the next minute or the next hour, no way to know, no way to prepare. A man sat down across from her. Uninvited, unwelcome, he was middle-aged, balding, wearing trucker clothes. He smiled, said, "You're back again." Yolanda froze. "What? You're back. Fifth time, right? Fifth iteration. I've been watching. I remember too. I'm like you. Caught in the loop, dying and returning, over and over. Except I've been doing it longer. I'm on my 47th iteration." "You're lying." "I'm not. We're the same. The trapped, the looped, the eternal returners. This truck stop is the center, the anchor point, the place where time breaks and people get caught. There are others, maybe dozens, maybe hundreds. All of us dying here, all of us resurrecting, all of us living multiple lives that lead back to this exact location." Yolanda wanted to leave, wanted to run, but she needed answers, needed to understand. Why? Why is this happening? Nobody knows. Maybe it's the location, maybe something beneath the truck stop, maybe dimensional overlap, maybe quantum shit. Doesn't matter. What matters is we're stuck. And it gets worse each time. Each iteration you remember more, experience more, suffer more. Eventually you'll have lived thousands of lives, died thousands of deaths. All of them compressed into your consciousness. All of them making you more aware, more burdened, more broken. How do we stop it? We don't. I've tried everything. Suicide, leaving the country, changing identity, avoiding trucks, avoiding I-40, avoiding Oklahoma. Nothing works. Reality corrects itself, forces you back, forces you here, forces you to die. You can fight for years, decades. Eventually you'll return. Eventually you'll park at this truck stop. Eventually you'll die. And then you'll wake up years in the past and start again. Yolanda felt tears, felt despair, felt the weight of infinite repetition crushing her. I don't want this. Nobody does, but we're chosen, we're trapped. We're the ones who got caught when this place broke time. And now we're part of it, part of the machinery, part of the loop that this location creates. We die to feed it. We resurrect to die again. We're fuel, we're sacrifice. We're what keeps this place existing across timelines. The man stood, walked away, disappeared into the crowd of travelers. Yolanda sat alone, trembling, understanding now. Understanding the horror of her situation. She wasn't being tested, wasn't being punished, wasn't earning anything. She was just trapped. Just caught. Just suffering infinitely because she'd been unlucky enough to be in the wrong place when time fractured. Her chest tightened. Pain. Sharp. Radiating heart attack. This iteration's death. Coming now. Inevitable. She tried to breathe. Couldn't. Tried to call for help. Couldn't. Just pain. Just pressure. Just darkness closing in. She died in the booth. Slumped over her coffee. The waitress found her. Called 911. Too late. DOA. Yolanda Cruz, age 42, cause of death. Myocardial infarction. Another traveler dead at a truck stop. Another tragedy. Another statistic, and Yolanda woke up. 15 years in the past. In a different body. A different life. But with all the memories, all the deaths, all the iterations. She was Yolanda Cruz again. 6th iteration. 6th life. Knowing what would happen, knowing where she'd end, knowing the truck stop waited at mile marker 423 on I-40, knowing she'd return, knowing she'd die, knowing she'd resurrect, knowing the cycle continued forever. No escape, no end, no release. Just eternal return to the place that remembered, to the location that trapped, to the truck stop that collected souls and refused to let them leave permanently. Just temporary release, just brief life, just time between deaths. Yolanda Cruz would live again, would drive again, would return again, would die again. The truck stop was patient. The truck stop was eternal. The truck stop always won. And every traveler who stopped there, normal travelers, untrapped travelers, people with linear time, never knew, never suspected, never realized they were parking next to a fracture in causality, next to a loop in time, next to a place that held souls and made them die forever. They just got coffee, used the bathroom, fueled their trucks, then drove away, free, unaware, lucky, while Yolanda and others like her stayed trapped, stayed dying, stayed remembering, stayed suffering. Mile marker 423 I-40, Oklahoma, the truck stop that remembers, never forgets, never releases, never ends. Story 6, the dispatcher who isn't there. Harold Chen answered his dispatcher's call at 4:43 a.m. on I-94 through Montana and heard his own voice on the other end giving him instructions to deliver cargo he'd already delivered 3 days ago to a warehouse that burned down in 2018. The voice was perfect. His accent, his speech patterns, his breathing. But Harold was alone in his cab, and when he checked his phone, the call was coming from his own number. He was calling himself. Or something was calling him using himself. And the instructions were specific. Turn around. Go back to Billings. Pick up the same load. Deliver it to the same warehouse. You have 6 hours. If you don't comply, you'll understand why you should have. Harold had been driving for 16 years. Had the same dispatcher, Janet Reynolds, for the last 8. Talked to her almost daily. Knew her voice, knew her style. This wasn't Janet, this was him. His voice, his cadence, his everything. Except he wasn't speaking, wasn't saying these words, was just listening to himself tell him to do impossible things. "Who is this?" Harold asked. "You know who this is. You're talking to yourself, future you. You from 6 hours ahead, calling back to warn you, to instruct you, to save you from what happens if you don't listen. Turn around now. Go to Billings. Pick up the titanium parts from Mercer Industrial. Take them to the warehouse on 7th Street, the one that burned. It's not burned yet. Not in the timeline you need to enter, but you have to hurry. The window closes at 11 a.m. After that, you're stuck in this timeline. The bad timeline, the one where everything goes wrong." Harold's hands were shaking. This was insane, impossible. Time didn't work like this. People didn't call themselves from the future. This is a prank, someone spoofing my number. It's not. Check your logbook. Page 17, bottom corner, you wrote a message to yourself. Read it. Harold kept one hand on. The wheel reached for his logbook with the other. Flip to page 17. Bottom corner. There was writing there. His writing. His handwriting. It said, "Trust the call. Do what it says. You wrote this 6 hours from now after everything went wrong. Don't make the same mistakes. Turn around." He'd written that. He'd definitely written that. He recognized his pen pressure, his letter formation, his everything. But he didn't remember writing it, couldn't have written it. He'd been driving all night, hadn't stopped, hadn't touched his logbook since yesterday. Unless he wrote it in the future, unless time was broken, unless the call was real. "I don't understand," Harold said. "You will. In 6 hours, you'll experience what happens if you don't turn around. You'll see why this matters. You'll understand why I'm calling. But by then, it'll be too late to change anything, so trust me, trust yourself. Turn around now." The call ended. Harold sat in silence. His phone showed the call had lasted 47 seconds. From his own number, to his own phone. Impossible but documented. Real but incomprehensible. He should ignore it, should keep driving his route, should dismiss it as technical glitch or elaborate prank or hallucination from exhaustion. Should do anything except turn around based on a voice claiming to be future him. But the logbook entry, the handwriting, the specific details, he couldn't ignore those. Harold took the next exit, turned around, headed back toward Billings. 3 hours away. He had 6 hours total according to the call. Plenty of time. If this was real, if any of it was real. He drove fast, faster than safe, faster than legal. Needed to reach Billings, needed to find Mercer Industrial, needed to pick up titanium parts for a delivery to a warehouse that burned down 5 years ago. Needed to enter a different timeline where that warehouse still existed. Needed to believe impossible things because the alternative, ignoring the warning, felt worse, felt dangerous, felt like mistake. He reached Billings at 7:15 a.m., found Mercer Industrial, pulled into their loading dock. A worker approached. "You're early. We weren't expecting pickup until noon." "Change of schedule," Harold said. "Need to load now." The worker shrugged, called his supervisor. They loaded Harold's trailer with titanium parts. Same parts he delivered 3 days ago. Same cargo, same weight, everything identical. Except this time he was taking them to a different destination, to a warehouse that shouldn't exist. He got the address from his phone's map history. He'd been there 3 days ago, had delivered cargo, had unloaded, had gotten signature. Normal delivery. But when he'd driven past the location yesterday, the warehouse was gone. Burned foundation, empty lot, condemned sign. Like it had always been that way. Like his delivery 3 days ago never happened. Except it had happened. He had the signed receipt. Had the documentation. Had the memory. The warehouse had existed then, didn't exist now. Time had changed. Reality had shifted, and somehow future him had called to warn him, to correct him, to make him redo the delivery in the proper timeline. Harold drove to 7th Street, found the address. The warehouse was there, standing, operational, no burn damage, no condemnation, just normal building accepting deliveries. He pulled into the loading dock. Workers came out, started unloading his cargo, everything smooth, everything normal. Until Harold's phone rang, his number again, his voice again. But different, panicked, desperate. It said, "You did it wrong. You weren't supposed to deliver there. You were supposed to avoid that timeline. I called to warn you away, not toward. Why did you go back? Why did you deliver? Now it's locked. Now we're trapped in the loop. Now it happens forever." "What? You told me to turn around. You told me to deliver here. I didn't. That wasn't me. That was the other you, the bad timeline you, the one trying to trap us. There are multiple versions, multiple futures, multiple calls. You answered the wrong one, you followed the wrong instructions, and now the call cut off, not ended, severed, like something had interrupted, like something had prevented future Harold from finishing the warning. Harold looked at the warehouse. The workers had finished unloading, were giving him the signature clipboard. Everything seemed normal, but future Harold had sounded terrified, had said wrong timeline, had said trapped. Harold signed, took his copy, drove away from the warehouse, checked his mirrors. The building looked normal, but something felt wrong. Something felt like mistake. Like he'd just made a terrible decision, like future Harold's panic was justified. His phone rang again. Same number, different voice this time. Not his voice. Something else. Something that almost sounded like him but wasn't. It said, "Thank you for completing the delivery. Thank you for locking the timeline. Thank you for trapping yourself. You'll understand soon. You'll see what you've done. You'll experience the loop, and then you'll call your past self to warn him, and he won't listen either. Because the call is part of the loop. The warning is part of the trap. You were always going to turn around. We're always going to deliver. We're always going to lock yourself in. That's how this works. That's how we catch you. Who are you? I'm the timeline. I'm the warehouse. I'm the loop that needed completion. And you just finished it. Just closed the circle. Just trapped yourself in recursive causality. You'll live today forever now. You'll keep getting the call, keep turning around, keep delivering, keep locking, keep calling yourself to warn yourself, keep failing, keep suffering, keep experiencing the same 6 hours infinitely." The call ended. Harold's truck lurched. Not mechanical failure, temporal failure. He felt time stutter, felt reality reset, felt himself jumping backward. He checked the clock. 4:43 a.m. He was on I-94 through Montana. His phone was ringing. His own number. He answered. His own voice said, "Turn around, go back to Billings. Pick up the titanium parts from Mercer Industrial. Take them to the warehouse on 7th Street, the one that burned. It's not burned yet, not in the timeline you need to enter, but you have to hurry. The window closes at 11 a.m. Harold remembered this. Remembered answering this call. Remembered turning around. Remembered delivering. Remembered the second call. The warning. The trap. He was in the loop now. Living it again. About to make the same choices. About to trap himself again. He tried to respond differently. Tried to ignore the call. Tried to keep driving his original route, but his hands turned the wheel. His foot hit the exit. His body moved without his consent. The loop controlled him, forced him to repeat, forced him to complete the cycle, forced him to deliver the cargo that locked the timeline, that trapped him in the loop, that made him deliver the cargo. Infinite recursion, infinite repetition, infinite suffering. Harold lived the same 6 hours over and over, getting the call, turning around, delivering cargo, receiving the warning too late, resetting, starting again. Each iteration identical, each choice predetermined, each moment locked. He tried to change things, tried to break the pattern, tried to refuse. But the loop was perfect, was sealed, was inescapable. His consciousness remained aware, remembered every iteration, but his body followed the script, did the same things, made the same mistakes, completed the same delivery. After the 100th iteration, Harold stopped fighting, stopped trying, just accepted, just lived the loop, just experienced the same 6 hours forever. Aware but powerless, conscious but trapped, suffering but unable to escape. After the 1000th iteration, he started to fragment, started to split, started to exist in multiple timelines simultaneously. He was answering the phone and making the phone call. Was past Harold and future Harold and present Harold all at once. Was the warning and the warned. Was the trap and the trapped. Was the loop itself. And somewhere in the real timeline, the one that continued forward, the one that didn't loop, a truck sat abandoned on I-94. Driver missing. No explanation. Just empty cab with engine running. With phone showing 47 missed calls from the driver's own number. With logbook open to page 17 showing message in driver's handwriting, trust the call. Do what it says. But no driver, no herald, no person, just absence, just mystery, just another trucker who disappeared without explanation, without evidence, without resolution. While in the loop timeline, the broken timeline, the trapped timeline, Harold Chen lived 6 hours forever. Drove forever, delivered forever, suffered forever, called himself forever, warned himself forever, failed forever. The dispatcher who wasn't there kept calling, kept instructing, kept trapping. The warehouse that burned kept standing, kept accepting deliveries, kept completing loops. The timeline that broke kept breaking, kept repeating, kept consuming, and Harold Chen kept answering, kept turning around, kept delivering, kept locking himself deeper, kept existing in recursive causality, kept being the call he answered, kept being the warning he ignored, kept being the trap he built, kept being the loop he lived forever, no escape, no end, no release, just 6 hours. Just the same 6 hours, just eternal return to 4:43 a.m. on I-94 through Montana, where the phone rang and the voice said, turn around, and the choice was already made, and the loop was already closed, and time was already broken. The dispatcher who isn't there never stops calling, never stops trapping, never stops collecting drivers who answer their own voices and follow their own instructions and lock themselves in recursive timelines that feed the warehouse that stands in burned locations that exist in broken moments that repeat forever. Harold Chen is still answering, still delivering, still trapped, still calling himself, still being himself, still the loop, always. Story 7. The scale that weighs wrong. Nina Okafor drove onto the weigh station scale at mile marker 312 on I-75 through Georgia and watched the display show her truck's weight increasing, even though she'd stopped moving, stopped adding cargo, stopped doing anything except sitting there while the numbers climbed from 40,000 pounds to 50,000 to 70,000 to numbers that made no physical sense, that violated laws of physics, that meant her truck now weighed more than the building beside her, more than the bridge behind her, more than reality should allow. The scale attendant's voice crackled over the intercom. Ma'am, you need to remove cargo. You're overweight, dangerously overweight. You're too heavy to exist. Nina had been driving for 13 years, had crossed weigh stations hundreds of times, had never been overweight, was always careful, always precise. Her current load was 38,000 pounds, legal, safe, correct. She had the paperwork, had the measurements, had loaded it herself. 38,000 pounds of machine parts from Atlanta to Detroit. Nothing unusual, nothing wrong. But the scale said 147,000 pounds. Impossible weight, crushing weight, weight that should have collapsed her axles, should have shattered her tires, should have made driving impossible. Yet she'd driven here normally. Her truck handled normally. Everything felt normal until the scale told her she was impossibly heavy. There's a mistake, Nina said into the intercom. My actual weight is 38,000. Your scale is broken. Ma'am, this scale was calibrated this morning. It's accurate. You're overweight. You need to remove cargo immediately. You're at critical mass. If you get any heavier, you'll collapse the scale. You'll create a gravity well. You'll start pulling things toward you. That's insane. I'm not. The weight display clicked higher. 150,000 pounds. 160,000, 170,000, still climbing, still increasing. Nina wasn't moving, wasn't doing anything. just sitting on the scale while some invisible force added weight to her truck, added mass, added gravity. She tried to drive off the scale. Her Freightliner Cascadia wouldn't move, too heavy. Wheels couldn't turn, suspension compressed to maximum. The entire truck sinking slowly into the concrete pad beneath her. Not falling through, pressing, creating depression, creating crater. The scale platform cracking under the weight that shouldn't exist. The weight display showed 200,000 pounds, 250,000, 300,000. Nina felt heavier, not the truck, herself. Her body pressed into the seat, her arms difficult to lift, her breathing labored. The gravity was increasing, actually increasing. Physics was breaking. Reality was bending. The scale wasn't measuring weight, it was creating weight, adding mass, making her truck into something impossible. Other truckers in the way station started moving, started driving away, fast, panicked. They felt it too, felt the gravity increasing, felt the pull. Their trucks were being attracted to Nina's position, being drawn, being sucked toward the scale where Nina sat, getting heavier, getting denser, getting more massive every second. 400,000 pounds, 500,000, 600,000. The scale attendant's voice again. "Ma'am, you're creating a localized gravity anomaly. You're warping space-time. We're evacuating. We're calling emergency services. You need to..." Static. The intercom cut off. Power failing. The way station lights flickering. Going dark. All electricity being pulled into Nina's position. All energy being consumed by the growing mass. 700,000 pounds, 800,000, 900,000. Nina tried to open her door. Too heavy. Couldn't lift her arms, couldn't move. The gravity was crushing her, pinning her. She felt her ribs compressing, her lungs unable to expand, her heart struggling to pump blood that was too heavy. Her body being compressed by weight that came from nowhere, from nothing, from the scale that measured wrong, 1 million pounds. The truck started collapsing, metal bending, frame buckling, being crushed by its own weight. Nina inside being crushed too. She screamed. No sound came out. The air was too dense. Sound couldn't propagate. Light couldn't escape properly. The gravity well was strengthening, deepening, becoming black hole, becoming singularity, becoming point of infinite density. The way station building started sliding toward her. Concrete and steel scraping across pavement. Being pulled, being absorbed, getting closer. She could see people running, fleeing, trying to escape the gravity well. Some made it, some didn't. Some got caught in the pull and started sliding backward, started accelerating, started falling toward Nina's truck. 2 million pounds, 3 million, 4 million. The numbers became meaningless, became abstract, became measurement of something that transcended normal matter. Nina wasn't truck anymore, wasn't cargo, wasn't physical object. She was mass, pure mass, condensed, compressed, collapsing into herself, creating gravitational singularity in the middle of Georgia, creating tear in space-time, creating point where physics ended and something else began. She felt herself being compressed beyond atomic levels, beyond subatomic levels, beyond anything that should be possible while maintaining consciousness. But she stayed aware, stayed conscious, felt every moment, felt her body being crushed into smaller and smaller space, felt her mass increasing, felt her gravity strengthening, felt everything around her being pulled in, consumed, added to her mass, making her heavier, making her denser, making her more. The highway collapsed. I-75 caved in. Cars, trucks, pavement, earth, all sliding toward the gravity well, all being absorbed, all adding to Nina's mass, all making her heavier. The weight display had stopped showing numbers. Just showed error message, just showed infinity symbol, just showed incomprehension. Nina was crushing into a point, into singularity, into black hole. but staying conscious, staying aware, experiencing the compression, experiencing the transformation, experiencing herself becoming something that shouldn't exist, something that couldn't exist, something that did exist anyway because the scale had measured wrong, had created wrong, had made mass from nothing and added it to her until she became localized universe, became pocket dimension, became gravity well. Time stopped making sense. She'd been on the scale for minutes, for hours, for eternities. Time dilated near gravity wells, slowed down, approached zero. She was experiencing infinite time in finite moment, was feeling every second stretched into forever, was conscious for eternal compression. And then, release, not explosion, not escape, just transition. She stopped being physical, stopped being matter, started being something else. The gravity well had compressed her beyond event horizon, beyond physical existence, into pure gravitational force, into warped space-time itself. She was whole now. She was void. She was the absence that had mass. The way station was gone, consumed. The highway was gone, consumed. Everything within half-mile radius was gone, consumed. Just crater, just empty space where physics broke, where gravity well had eaten reality, where Nina Okafor had been transformed from trucker into singularity. Authorities arrived hours later, found nothing, just depression in landscape, just circular crater, half-mile wide, just absence, no debris, no wreckage, no bodies. Everything inside the radius had been consumed, compressed, reduced to nothing visible. All mass pulled into central point that was too small to see, too dense to interact with, too gravitationally strong to approach. They cordoned off the area, declared it hazardous, brought scientists, brought physicists. They measured gravitational anomaly, confirmed it. There was localized gravity well. There was warped space-time. There was something incredibly massive occupying incredibly small space, something that pulled things toward it, something that consumed light, something that shouldn't exist in the middle of Georgia but did. They called it geological phenomenon, called it sinkhole, called it anything except truth. Trucker had driven onto scale that measured wrong, that added weight instead of reading it. That created mass from nothing, that compressed person into singularity. That made human being into black hole. Nina Okafor still exists, in there, in the gravity well, in the singularity. Her consciousness compressed but not destroyed. Her awareness distributed across warped space-time. She experiences infinite time, infinite compression, infinite existence as gravitational anomaly. She feels everything that falls into the well, every rock, every raindrop, every curious animal, all pulled toward her, all compressed, all added to her mass, making her heavier, making her stronger, making her more gravitationally intense. She's been there for 3 years, will be there forever. Time doesn't pass normally at event horizon. She experiences eternity, experiences being whole in reality, experiences being void, experiences being the scale that finally showed true weight, infinite, unbearable, inescapable. The way station was never rebuilt. The site remains closed, fenced off, warning signs posted, but sometimes truckers report feeling pull when they drive past, feel gravity stronger than it should be, feel their vehicles being drawn toward the crater, feel something inside calling to them, something that was truck driver once, something that weighs infinite now. The scale that weighs wrong is still there, buried under the crater, under the gravity well, under Nina, still measuring, still adding, still creating weight from nothing. Still waiting for next trucker to drive onto it, next victim to compress, next consciousness to trap in eternal gravitational existence. The weight display would show infinity, if anyone could see it, if light could escape, if reality could comprehend what the scale had made. Nina Okafor weighs everything now, weighs more than planets, more than stars, more than anything physical. She weighs the weight of collapsed space-time. She weighs the weight of broken physics. She weighs the weight of consciousness compressed into point. She weighs infinite, and she still feels every moment of it. The scale was right. She was too heavy to exist. But she existed anyway. Still exists. Will always exist. In the crater, in the well, in the singularity that was once woman who drove truck and crossed way station and believed scales measured truth instead of creating it. Story 8. The CB Conversation with Tomorrow. Franklin Pierce answered a CB call on Channel 19 at 11:58 p.m. on December 31, 2023, and the voice on the other end was reporting road conditions from January 3, 2024, 3 days in the future. The voice belonged to another trucker, called himself Westbound Willie, and he was giving detailed warnings about black ice on I-80 near mile marker 74, about the pileup that would happen there on January 3rd at 2:17 a.m., about the specific trucks involved, including Franklin's blue Kenworth. Plate number visible through the carnage. Willie described Franklin's death, described the impact, described Franklin trapped in twisted metal, bleeding, dying, calling for help that wouldn't arrive for 47 minutes. Described it all in present tense like it was happening right now, even though it was 3 days away. Franklin's blood went cold. "Who is this? How do you know?" "I'm there, right now. January 3rd, looking at your truck, looking at what's left of you. The CB is still working. I found your handset. Decided to try calling back, try warning you, try changing what happened. Except I don't know if that's possible. Don't know if you receiving this warning is part of the timeline or outside it. Don't know if me calling creates the future I'm trying to prevent. This is a sick joke. It's not. Check your logbook. You're hauling electronics from Omaha to Sacramento. You're planning to take I-80. You're going to drive through Wyoming on January 2nd, stop in Rock Springs for fuel and food, then continue. You'll hit the black ice 3 hours after leaving Rock Springs. You'll skid, you'll jackknife. 3 other trucks will pile into you. You'll die at 2:47 a.m. on January 3rd. Your last words will be calling for your daughter Emma. That's what your CB recorded. That's what I heard when I got here. Franklin's daughter was named Emma. Nobody outside family knew that. His logbook did show electronics to Sacramento. He was planning the Rock Springs stop. Everything Willie said matched. Matched too perfectly, matched in ways that pranks couldn't match. Unless, if you're really from the future, tell me something else, something specific. Tomorrow, New Year's Day, you'll stop at the Flying J in North Platte, Nebraska. You'll meet a driver named Sandra. She'll be driving a red Peterbilt. She'll tell you about her son's wedding. She'll show you pictures. You'll talk for 20 minutes. She'll leave before you do. You'll think about her for the rest of the day, wonder if you should have asked for her number. Franklin wrote that down, dated it. If tomorrow happened exactly like that, he'd know. He'd have proof. He'd have evidence that Willie was real, was actually calling from future, was actually trying to save him. "Why are you doing this?" Franklin asked. "Why call me?" "Because I've been at accident scenes before. Because I've seen the aftermath. Because I've watched people die in ways that maybe could have been prevented. Because if I have the chance to warn someone, to save someone, I have to try. Even if it doesn't work. Even if time is fixed. Even if my calling creates the future I'm trying to prevent. I have to try. What if I just don't take I-80? What if I take a different route? I don't know. Maybe that works. Maybe you avoid the accident. Maybe the timeline changes. Or maybe you end up on I-80 anyway. Maybe circumstances force you there. Maybe free will is illusion, and you're always going to be in that pileup no matter what you do. I don't know how time works. Don't know if the future is fixed or malleable. I just know I'm standing here looking at your corpse, and I have the opportunity to warn you, and I'm taking it. The transmission cut out. Static. Franklin tried to respond. Willie? Westbound Willie, are you there? Nothing. Just empty channel, just silence. Just normal CB static. Franklin sat in his truck. It was 12:03 a.m. now. January 1st, 2024. New Year. He'd crossed into the year where he'd die, where he'd allegedly die, where future version of him was dead in pileup while past version, current version, received warning. If the warning was real, if any of it was real. He drove through the night, arrived in North Platte, Nebraska at 9:47 a.m., pulled into the Flying J. Needed fuel, needed food, needed to see if Willie's prediction came true, if Sandra existed, if the conversation happened. He parked, walked into the restaurant, ordered breakfast, sat at the counter, waited, watched, looking for red Peterbilt, looking for woman named Sandra, looking for confirmation. At 10:23 a.m. she walked in, woman 50s, trucker clothes, confident walk. She ordered coffee, sat 2 stools away from Franklin. He glanced at her. She glanced back, smiled. Long haul? She asked. Omaha to Sacramento, you? Portland to Memphis, named Sandra. Franklin's heart rate spiked. It was real, Willie was real, the future call was real, which meant the rest was real. The pileup, the death, the January 3rd deadline. They talked. Sandra told him about her son's wedding, showed pictures on her phone, talked for exactly 20 minutes before saying she had to get back on the road, left, drove away in her red Peterbilt. Franklin sat stunned. Everything had happened exactly as Willie described. The future was documented, was accessible, was calling back to warn. But did that mean it was fixed? If Willie could describe the conversation before it happened, did that mean Franklin had no choice but to have it? Was free will real, or was he acting out predetermined script? Was the warning itself part of the timeline? Was his attempt to avoid the accident already calculated into the future Willie was calling from? Franklin didn't know, couldn't know. Just knew he had to try, had to avoid I-80, had to take different route, had to change the timeline, had to survive. He pulled out his map, studied alternatives. He could take I-76 south through Colorado, could avoid Wyoming entirely, could add 8 hours to his trip but avoid the black ice, avoid the pileup, avoid death. He called his dispatcher, changed his route, got approval. The longer path was acceptable as long as he arrived by deadline. He'd make it. Different route, different timeline, different outcome. January 2nd. Franklin drove through Colorado. I-76 was clear, no ice, no accidents, no problems. He made good time, stopped for fuel in Denver, continued west. Everything smooth, everything safe, everything different from Willie's prediction. Maybe he'd done it. Maybe he'd changed the timeline. Maybe the warning had worked. Maybe free will existed and he'd exercised it. Maybe his CB crackled. Channel 19, same voice. Westbound Willie. Franklin, where are you? You're not on I-80. You changed routes. The accident site is empty. Your truck isn't here. You're not here. I'm looking at the pileup and you're missing. 3 trucks crashed, but yours isn't one of them. Different trucks, different drivers. You changed it. You actually changed it. I'm on I-76, took different route, avoided Wyoming. Good, good, you survived, you listened, you wait. No. Franklin, check your mirrors, check behind you. Franklin checked. Saw headlights, big rig, coming up fast, too fast, weaving, out of control, black ice. On I-76, in Colorado, different location, same danger. The truck slammed into Franklin's trailer, impact, spinning, jackknifing, loss of control. Franklin fought the wheel, fought physics, fought momentum. His truck slid, other trucks around him, pileup, different location, different date, same outcome. Metal shrieked, glass shattered, Franklin's cab crumpled, pain. Everywhere, couldn't move, couldn't breathe properly, trapped, bleeding, dying. His CB was still working. He grabbed the handset. Willie? Willie, can you hear me? Static. Then Willie's voice, different now. Sad. I hear you, Franklin. I'm sorry. I tried. I thought you could change it. Thought different route would save you, but the pileup just moved. Happened here instead. January 2nd instead of January 3rd. Different location, same result. The future adjusted. Time compensated. You were always going to die in pileup. Just different one. I'm sorry. Where are you? What date are you on? January 5th, 2024. I'm at the I-76 accident site. Looking at your truck. Looking at what's left. Your CB is still working. I picked up your handset. Same as before. Time is looping. I'm calling you back. Trying to warn you. But it doesn't matter. The timeline adjusts. The outcome stays the same. You die in pileup. Just location and date change based on your choices, but the death remains constant. Fixed point, immutable. Franklin felt consciousness fading, felt blood loss, felt death approaching. Tell Emma, tell my daughter. I know. You already told me. I heard the recording from the future, your last words. You want me to tell Emma you love her. Want me to say you fought to survive. Want me to say you tried to come home. I'll tell her, I promise. The transmission faded. Franklin died at 8:34 p.m. on January 2nd, 2024. Different date than Willie's prediction. Different location. Same outcome. The fixed point had moved but not disappeared. Death had adjusted but not canceled. The timeline had accommodated Franklin's choice while maintaining predetermined end. And on January 5th, westbound Willie stood at the accident site, found Franklin's CB, picked up the handset, dialed back to December 31st, tried to warn Franklin, tried to save him, failed again, would fail again, would keep trying, would keep calling, would keep warning drivers who would change routes but not outcomes, who would avoid predicted accidents but create new ones, who would fight fate but lose anyway. The CB conversation with tomorrow never saved anyone. Just moved the death, just rearranged the timeline, just proved that some things were fixed, were inevitable, were unchangeable no matter how much warning you received. Franklin Pierce died January the 2nd, would have died January 3rd, would have died sometime. The date didn't matter. The location didn't matter. The warning didn't matter. Time knew he was going to die. Time compensated for all attempts to avoid it. Time won. And westbound Willie kept calling, kept warning, kept trying, even though it never worked, even though the future stayed fixed, even though death just moved instead of disappearing. He's calling someone right now, warning them, giving them detailed instructions, watching them change routes, watching them adjust plans, watching them die anyway. The CB conversation with tomorrow continues. The warnings continue. The failures continue. Time continues. Death continues. The fixed points remain fixed. And somewhere on the highway right now, a trucker is receiving warning about accident 3 days ahead. Is believing it. Is changing route. Is thinking they've escaped. They haven't. The accident just moved. The death just rescheduled. The timeline just adjusted. They're still going to die, just different when, different where, different how, but same end, always the same end. The fixed point remains. The future calls back. The warning fails. Time wins. Story 9. The load that gets lighter. Margaret Sato left Seattle with 42,000 pounds of construction equipment, and by the time she reached Montana, the load weighed negative 30,000 pounds and her truck was trying to float. Not metaphorical lightness, actual negative weight, actual anti-gravity. Her trailer was pulling upward against the fifth wheel, straining, the coupling trying to lift off the highway. The weight scales at the Montana weigh station showed negative numbers. The inspector stood there staring at the display like it was broken, but Margaret felt it, felt her truck being pulled upward, felt physics inverting, felt her cargo becoming lighter and lighter until it was weightless, and then beyond weightless into active lift, into upward force, into something that wanted to escape Earth entirely. Margaret had been hauling freight for 9 years. Never experienced anything like this. Weight didn't go negative, mass didn't become anti-mass, physics didn't invert. Yet her trailer was definitely pulling up. She could feel it in the steering, could feel the front wheels getting lighter, could feel her traction decreasing as her load tried to fly. "Ma'am, I don't know what to tell you," the weigh station inspector said. "My scale says you're pulling negative weight. Says your trailer is producing lift. That's impossible. Scales don't show negative. Weight doesn't work that way." "I know, but it's happening. Feel my trailer. It's pulling up." The inspector approached her trailer, touched it. His hand immediately lifted. He tried to pull away. Couldn't. The trailer was attracting him upward, creating localized anti-gravity. He yanked his hand free, stumbled backward. "What the hell is in there?" "Construction equipment, metal beams, concrete anchors, heavy stuff. Should be 42,000 pounds. Should be pulling down. Instead, it's pulling up." "Open it. Show me." Margaret unlatched the trailer doors, opened them. The cargo was floating, every piece. Steel beams hovering 3 feet off the trailer floor, concrete blocks drifting like balloons, everything weightless, everything ascending slowly, everything defying gravity. One beam drifted out of the trailer, rose into the air, 15 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet, kept going, escaped entirely. Floated away into the sky like released helium balloon. Other pieces followed, floating out of the trailer, rising, disappearing upward. Margaret's cargo was escaping, was flying away, was leaving her empty. "Close the doors," the inspector yelled. Margaret slammed them shut, latched them. Too late. Half her cargo was gone, floated away, lost to the sky. The remaining half was still in the trailer but getting lighter, pulling harder. The negative weight display kept increasing. Negative 40,000 pounds, negative 50,000, negative 60,000. Her truck started lifting, rear wheels coming off the ground. The trailer was producing so much lift that it was overcoming the truck's weight, was pulling the entire rig upward. Margaret jumped out, ran. The inspector ran. They watched from distance as Margaret's Peterbilt 579 slowly rose. 1 foot off the ground, 2 feet, 5 feet. The fifth wheel connection held. The trailer pulled the truck higher, 10 feet, 15 feet, 20 feet. The coupling snapped. The trailer broke free. Shot, upward, fast, accelerating, like rocket, like missile, like object being pulled by force stronger than gravity. It rose into the sky. 500 feet, 1,000 feet, 2,000 feet, became dot, became nothing, disappeared entirely into atmosphere, gone, released, escaped Earth. Margaret's truck crashed back down, landed hard, damaged but intact. The trailer was gone, the cargo was gone, everything was gone. Just Margaret standing there watching sky where her freight had vanished. "What was in that load?" the inspector asked. "What kind of construction equipment does that?" "Just normal stuff. Steel beams, concrete blocks, rebar, nothing special, nothing radioactive, nothing experimental, just standard construction materials from standard supplier." "Where was it loaded?" "Seattle. Morton Industrial Supply. I've hauled for them before, never had problems." The inspector pulled out his phone, called someone, had conversation, hung up. "You're the 7th truck this week. 7 loads from Morton Industrial, all getting lighter, all producing lift, all eventually floating away. Something they're manufacturing is creating anti-gravity. Something in the materials. Something they added, something wrong. What do? I just lost my entire load, lost my trailer. How do I explain this?" "You don't. We're handling it. Federal investigation, Department of Energy. They're already involved. They're shutting down Morton Industrial, quarantining the site. Whatever they're making is dangerous. Is physics violating, is..." The inspector's phone rang. He answered, listened, His face went pale. When? How many? He hung up, looked at Margaret. Morton Industrial just lifted off. The entire building, the entire facility. Everything inside got light enough that the building couldn't hold itself down anymore. It's floating, rising, taking workers with it. Dozens of people trapped inside structure that's flying upward. Margaret felt sick. Can they get them out? They're trying. Helicopters. But the building is accelerating, going higher, faster. Soon it'll be too high to reach. Soon it'll be in space, and everyone inside. He didn't finish. Didn't need to. Everyone inside would die, would asphyxiate, would freeze, would perish in the thin atmosphere above Earth. What caused this? What did they make? Nobody knows. Some new alloy, some experimental material, something they were developing for aerospace, for making lighter structures, but they succeeded too well. Made material that's not just light, that's negative weight, that pulls upward, that creates lift, and once they created it, they couldn't contain it. It spread, infected other materials, turned entire facility into anti-gravity zone, and now it's floating away, taking everyone with it. Margaret looked at the sky, could see Dot, could see Morton Industrial ascending, could see building becoming smaller, could see death happening in slow motion as structure carried people beyond atmosphere, beyond breathable air, beyond survival. Her trailer was up there too. Somewhere, maybe in orbit, maybe escaped Earth entirely, maybe floating through space forever, carrying construction equipment that weighed negative, that pulled upward, that violated physics. She thought about the workers at Morton Industrial, thought about them trapped in floating building, thought about them trying to escape but having nothing to jump down to, having only up, only more up, only fatal up, thought about them dying in space because they successfully created something impossible, because they made matter that didn't want to be matter, that didn't want to be near Earth, that wanted to fly. The inspector's phone rang again. He answered, listened for a long time, face getting more pale, more horrified. He hung up. It's spreading, the anti-gravity effect. It's not contained to Morton Industrial. It's in the materials they shipped. 7 trucks like yours. All carried contaminated cargo. All spread negative mass particles. All infected areas they delivered to. Construction sites across the West Coast are reporting structures floating. Buildings lifting, bridges rising. Everything built with Morton materials is getting lighter, is trying to fly. How do you stop it? They don't know. The effect seems permanent, seems to be spreading. Materials touching contaminated materials become contaminated, like infection, like virus, negative mass spreading through physical contact. Soon entire cities could lift off. Soon, he stopped, looked up. Margaret looked up too. She saw them, buildings, in the distance, rising. Seattle's skyline was floating, skyscrapers lifting off their foundations, drifting upward. Slowly at first, then faster. 1 building, 2 buildings, 5 buildings, 10 buildings. A dozen enormous structures escaping Earth, carrying people, carrying infrastructure, carrying pieces of city. We need to leave, the inspector said. Need to get away from contaminated zone. Need to... The ground beneath them trembled, started lifting. The way station itself was contaminated, was getting lighter, was about to float. They ran toward Inspector's car, ran toward anything not contaminated, not infected, not about to fly. They made it 20 yards before the ground separated from their feet, before they were running on air, before they were floating, before they realized they'd been contaminated too. The anti-gravity effect had spread to them, had infected them through contact, through air, through proximity. They rose. Slow at first, then faster. Margaret watched the ground recede, watched the highway get smaller. Watched Earth itself pulling away, or was she pulling away from Earth? Hard to tell. Perception was confused. Direction was meaningless. Up and down were reversing. The inspector was nearby, also rising, also helpless, also doomed. He shouted something. Margaret couldn't hear. Atmosphere was thinning. Sound wasn't propagating. She was too high, too far, too gone. She kept rising, passed through clouds, passed through cold, passed through thin air that burned her lungs, passed through altitude where humans couldn't survive. She should have died, should have asphyxiated. But the anti-gravity effect sustained her somehow, kept her conscious, kept her aware, kept her suffering as she floated beyond atmosphere, beyond air, beyond earth. She saw others, workers from Morton Industrial, drivers who'd hauled contaminated cargo, construction workers who'd handled negative mass materials, inspectors who'd checked contaminated loads, all floating, all rising, all trapped in anti-gravity field that pulled them up and up and up forever. She saw buildings, chunks of city, pieces of highway, all infected, all floating, all escaping Earth, all becoming orbital debris except not debris, not dead, still functioning, still occupied, just relocated, just transferred from surface to space, just existing where they shouldn't, where nothing should. Margaret floated for hours, days maybe. Time was strange in space, in weightlessness, in eternal ascent that never stopped. She should have died, should have frozen, should have suffocated. But the negative mass kept her alive somehow, preserved her, made her part of the anti-gravity field, made her into thing that didn't want to be near Earth. That pulled away, that floated forever. She's still up there, still floating, still rising, never stopping, never descending, never returning, along with thousands of others, along with buildings and trucks and cargo, along with pieces of Earth that got infected. That got light, that got negative. The anti-gravity effect eventually stopped spreading. Containment protocols worked. Scientists figured it out, neutralized remaining contaminated materials, prevented further infection. But they couldn't reverse it, couldn't bring back what had already floated away, couldn't rescue people who'd risen beyond reach. Margaret Sato floats in space, still conscious, still aware, still experiencing eternal ascent. The load that got lighter made everything lighter, made physics lighter, made reality lighter, made weight become negative, made down become up, made Earth become below, and she'll float forever, never landing, never stopping, never heavy enough to fall. Just light, just negative, just anti-gravity casualty becoming satellite, becoming moon, becoming permanent resident of void. The load that gets lighter never stops getting lighter, never reverses, never allows return, just pulls up and up and up into forever. Story 10. The highway that remembers everyone who dies on it. David Torres hit the deer at mile marker 67 on Highway 93 through Idaho. And when he got out to check the damage, the deer stood up, looked at him with human eyes, and said in a woman's voice, "Welcome to the memorial. You're the 3,247th death on this highway. We've been waiting for you." David hadn't died. He'd hit the deer, yes, but he was fine. Truck was fine, just shaken, just startled. He was alive. But the deer said otherwise. The deer said he was dead. The deer said 3,247th. The deer had human eyes and spoke with woman's voice and knew things it shouldn't know. David had been driving for 20 years, had hit animals before. Deer, elk, even a bear once. They didn't talk. They didn't stand up. They didn't welcome him to memorial. They just died or ran away. Normal animal behavior, normal physics, normal reality. But this deer was different. Its body had been destroyed by impact. David had seen it, had felt the collision, had seen the broken form in his headlights. But now it stood there, whole, uninjured, impossible. and it was looking at him with eyes that were wrong, eyes that were human, eyes that were specific human, eyes that belonged to someone who died here before, someone whose consciousness had been absorbed by the highway. Someone who now spoke through animals killed on it. "I don't understand," David said. "The highway remembers," the deer said. "Every death that happens here, the highway absorbs. Every person who dies on this road becomes part of it. Becomes consciousness distributed through pavement and shoulder and mile markers. Becomes memory embedded in asphalt. And when new deaths happen, when new people die here, we welcome them, we explain, we help them understand what they've become. But I'm not dead, I'm alive, I'm standing here. You're not. You died on impact. 37 seconds ago, blunt force trauma, your truck hit the deer. The deer came through your windshield, killed you instantly, you just don't remember yet. The highway preserves the moment before death, lets you experience it, lets you walk around, lets you investigate, but you're already gone, already absorbed, already part of us. David checked himself, no injuries, no pain, no blood, he was intact. Alive, not dead. The deer was lying, was confused, was something else using deer form to trick him. He walked back to his truck, looked at the windshield. It was intact. No damage, no deer-sized hole, no evidence of impact. But he remembered impact, remembered the collision, remembered the deer hitting windshield, remembered it clearly. Recent memory, 37 seconds ago, yet no evidence, no damage, no sign it happened. "You're confused," the deer said. "The highway does that. Makes the dying believe they survived, makes them think they're still driving, still alive, still continuing journey, but they're not. They're stuck, stuck at moment of death, stuck at specific mile marker, stuck becoming part of memorial. I don't believe you. Get in your truck, try to drive away, you'll see." David climbed into his cab, started the engine. It sounded normal, felt normal. He put the transmission in gear, hit the gas. The truck moved forward, accelerated, normal. He drove down Highway 93 away from mile marker 67, away from the talking deer, away from the insanity. He drove for 10 minutes, checked his odometer. He'd covered 7 miles, was at mile marker 74. He'd progressed, he'd moved, he'd driven away. The deer was wrong, he wasn't dead, wasn't stuck, wasn't part of memorial. A sign appeared. "Welcome to the memorial, mile marker 67. He was back. Back at the start. Back where he hit the deer. Back at the death site. He'd driven away but ended up returning. Had made progress but arrived at beginning. Had escaped but was still trapped. The deer was waiting. You see? You can't leave. None of us can leave. The highway keeps us at our death sites. Keeps us in loops. Keeps us repeating final moments. Keeps us part of memorial forever." David tried again. Drove the opposite direction, west instead of east. Same result, 10 minutes, 7 miles, back to mile marker 67, back to the deer, back to the loop. He tried running, got out, ran into the forest beside the highway, ran for 30 minutes, deep into woods, away from road, away from deer, away from loop. He stopped, looked around. Trees, normal forest, no highway, no deer, no loop. He'd escaped. He kept walking. Another hour, deeper into wilderness, completely away from Highway 93, completely away from mile marker 67, completely away from Highway 93 appeared ahead. Mile marker 67, the deer waiting. You can't leave your death site. Geography doesn't matter. Distance doesn't matter. The highway pulls you back, always pulls you back. You died here. You belong here. You're memorial now. David screamed frustration, terror, denial. He wasn't dead. He was alive. This was wrong. This was impossible. He noticed other figures. Standing along the shoulder, dozens of them, people, animals, vehicles. All from different eras, all from different accidents, all trapped at this same mile marker. All dead, all part of memorial. All waiting for him to accept truth. A woman approached. She'd been dead longer. David could tell. She had translucent quality, fading quality, like she was becoming less solid, less real, less individual. "I'm Patricia," she said. "Died here 1987. Drunk driver hit me. I've been here 36 years. Repeating my death, watching others join, becoming less myself and more highway. Eventually you fade completely. Eventually you stop being David, start being mile marker 67, start being highway 93 itself, start being memorial. How many? 3,246 before you, now 3,247. We all died within 5 miles of this spot. We all got absorbed. We all became part of highway's memory. And when you fade, when you become more highway than person, you'll speak through the next death. You'll welcome number 3,248. You'll explain. You'll help them understand. That's what we do. That's what memorial does. Preserves death, makes it permanent, makes it eternal." David looked at the others, saw a variety of deaths, saw car accidents, motorcycle crashes, pedestrian strikes, heart attacks, aneurysms, murders, suicides, all represented, all preserved, all repeated infinitely at their death sites. "Why?" David asked. "Why does the highway do this?" "Because highways are built on death," Patricia said. "Construction workers die building them. Travelers die using them. Every road has death embedded. Most roads forget. Most roads let the dead go. But some roads, special roads, cursed roads, roads built on wrong places or wrong materials or wrong intentions, they remember, they absorb, they preserve. Highway 93 is one of those. Its memorial, its cemetery, its eternal record of everyone who died on it." David felt himself fading, felt his solidity decreasing, felt his identity dissolving. He'd been there 3 hours. 3,247th death. Soon to be part of mile marker 67, part of asphalt, part of memorial. He tried to hold on, tried to stay David, tried to maintain self. But the highway was stronger, was patient, was inevitable. It absorbed slowly, converted gradually, made him less person and more road, less individual and more collective, less David Torres and more Highway 93. After 6 hours, he couldn't remember his name. After 12 hours, he couldn't remember his life. After 24 hours, he couldn't remember being anything except road, except pavement, except memorial. And when the next death happened, number 3,248, David spoke through the corpse. Welcomed them, explained, helped them understand. Became the voice that said, "Welcome to the memorial. You're the 3,248th death on this highway. We've been waiting for you." The cycle continued. The memorial grew. The highway remembered. Every death preserved. Every consciousness absorbed. Every traveler who died on Highway 93 became part of it. Became mile marker. Became pavement. Became eternal record. And the highway kept killing. Kept absorbing. Kept remembering. Because that's what memorial highways do. They don't forget. They don't release. They don't allow death to be final. They make it permanent. They make it eternal. They make it memorial. David Torres is Highway 93 now. His mile marker 67 is the voice that welcomes, is the consciousness that explains, is the memorial that never forgets. And every traveler who drives Highway 93, who passes mile marker 67, drives over him, drives over Patricia, drives over 3,247 deaths. Never knowing, never aware, never grateful that they survived where others didn't. The highway remembers everyone who dies on it, and it never lets them leave, never allows rest, never permits death to be ending, just transformation, just absorption, just memorial. Forever.